The tomb of the unknown soldier stood in silence, as it always had, sacred, eternal, guarded with discipline that never faltered. Tourists whispered, children clutched their parents' hands, and veterans saluted with trembling pride. Into this holy quiet strode a man whose footsteps carried arrogance louder than any word. He was a world champion boxer, unbeaten, adored, a man whose fists had shaken arenas and whose smile filled headlines. Cameras followed, fans cheered, but respect did not walk with him. Instead, he sneered at the stillness of the tomb guard, mocking the soldier's motionless stance as if it were weakness. The crowd gasped when he raised his fists in jest, and then, with the arrogance of a man who believed himself untouchable, he struck his punch, landing against the guard's shoulder. In that moment, silence grew heavier than thunder. What followed was not a fight, but a lesson in the truest strength of all: discipline. The champion was used to noise. His life had been filled with the cheering arenas, roaring crowds, cameras flashing, commentators shouting his name as he claimed victory after victory. From the rough streets where he had fought for survival, to the glistening belts that now hung on his wall, he had built a career on the sound of fists and the applause that followed. But that morning was different. The air at Arlington National Cemetery was not filled with cheers or noise. It was filled with silence. Rows of white headstones stretched into the horizon, each one carrying a story that no microphone had ever captured. Here, even the wind seemed to hush. For the champion, silence was foreign. And as he walked through the crowd, cameras flashing around him, that silence felt like a stage waiting for him to break. "Look at this place," he muttered, loud enough for his entourage to hear. "All this discipline, all this standing still. What's the point?" One of his trainers, a gray-haired man who had served in the military before joining boxing, leaned closer. "Show respect here, champ. These men gave their lives." But the fighter brushed it off. Respect wasn't in his vocabulary anymore. Success had eaten it. Fame had blinded him. To him, respect was something others owed him. He stopped before the tomb of the unknown soldier, where a guard stood in flawless stillness, rifle at his side, eyes fixed ahead, boots routed into the ground. The guard's presence was more powerful than any shout could have been. The champion smirked. He stepped closer. "You just stand here all day, like a statue. You call this strength?" The guard didn't blink. His jaw didn't twitch. His silence was a wall, unbreakable. The boxer shadowboxed mockingly, throwing punches into the air. His entourage chuckled nervously. Turris frowned. A veteran in a wheelchair shook his head, and then it happened. The champion's fist shot forward, a quick jab, striking the guard's shoulder. Not a devastating blow, but enough to shatter the sacred line between respect and violation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A mother pulled her child closer. A young boy whispered, "Why did he do that?" Veterans muttered angrily. Phones came up. Cameras zoomed in. But the guard did not move. His posture held, unbroken. His eyes remained forward, his rifle steady. He simply adjusted his stance back into perfection, as though the punch had never happened. The boxer blinked, waiting for a reaction. He was used to retaliation, two fists flying back. He was used to dominance, but here, there was none. Just silence, just discipline. And then, from the corner of the plaza, another guard appeared. His march was sharp, each step echoing like a drumbeat. The sound of his boots striking the stone cut through the silence. The crowd parted instinctively, as though making way for something greater. He stopped directly in front of the champion. His face betrayed no emotion. His rifle gleamed in the sunlight. He didn't shout, didn't threaten, he simply stood. The champion suddenly felt smaller. His fists, the very tools that had built his empire, felt useless. His arrogance, once towering, began to crumble beneath the weight of a silence he could not break. "Say something," he barked, his voice cracking with frustration. "Do something." But the guards said nothing. And then, an older veteran from the crowd spoke. His voice shook, but his words carried the weight of decades. "You think strength is in your fists? Boy, you think victory is in making others bleed. That man," he pointed to the guard, "is stronger than you'll ever be. He stands through storms, through heat, through pain. He stands for those who can't. That's strength." The champion's chest tightened. His eyes darted between the silent guards, the furious faces in the crowd, the children staring at him with confusion, shame, unfamiliar and heavy. Wrapped around him, his fists dropped. The silence pressed in harder, like an invisible wall he couldn't punch through. Tears pricked at his eyes, not from fear, but from realization. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." No response. The guards didn't need to answer. Their discipline was their statement. Their silence was their judgment. The boxer backed away slowly, his swagger gone. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't clap. They simply watched him, their silence as sharp as the guards. It was the most painful walk of his life. That night, the video was everywhere. Headlines screamed, "Champion punches, Tombguard learns lesson in silence." Millions watched. Commentators debated. Veterans wrote letters. Fans questioned their idol. But none of the noise outside compared to the noise inside his own heart. He sat alone in his mansion, replaying the footage again and again. Each time, he watched himself, a man drunk on arrogance, reduced to silence by someone who never even moved. For the first time, he realized he wasn't the strongest man in the world. He was the weakest, because real strength wasn't in fists. It wasn't in titles or belts or fame. Real strength was in the man who could stand unflinching, day after day, without recognition, without applause, in honor of something greater than himself. The champion wept. Weeks later, he returned to the tomb, this time alone. Without cameras, without an entourage, he stood in silence, head bowed, tears rolling freely. He whispered words no crowd would ever hear. "Forgive me, and thank you." And from that day forward, every fight he entered carried a new ritual. Before stepping into the ring, he bowed to the opponent, not to the crowd, but to the discipline he had once mocked. Because he had learned the hardest truth: fists win fights, but only respect wins honor. CTA 150 words. This isn't just the story of arrogance meeting humility, it's the story of what real strength means. The boxing champion thought his power lay in fists, in victories, in fame. But when he struck a silent guard, he discovered something greater: discipline, respect, and honor will always outlast pride. The guard never flinched. He didn't raise his rifle, didn't fight back. His silence was stronger than the boxer's punch. His discipline carried the weight of generations, the sacrifice of those who could no longer stand. If this story moved you, share it, let it remind others that arrogance crumbles in the face of respect, and true strength requires humility. Subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the hidden lessons in courage, honor, and humanity. Because sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought in the ring but in the silence of discipline.